Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat Tame Vidhitvati Mrityumeti Na Anya Pantha Vidyate Yanaya. I'm reminded of a story here. There was once one very successful, entrepreneur or a trader, old times, and he used to go on the ships for long voyages for trade. So he used to go on these long trips, and one day, a couple of his friends, while he was having some chai with them, they asked him that, hey, listen, do you know swimming? And this guy said, no, not really. He said, listen, you go for these long voyages and you don't know swimming, right? That's a huge risk. Why don't you learn some swimming? He says, how much time will it take? He said, about, say, 3 months. He said, that's a hell lot of a time, right? I have multiple trips coming up. I don't think that's possible. So the well-wishers, the friends said, okay, if you just don't have the time, do one thing. When you go on the ships, on long voyages, at least keep 2 or 3 empty drums on the ship along with you. 2 or 3 empty drums. In case some emergency happens, these drums will be very helpful for you. I guess you know why. So he decided, okay, let me start keeping 2 or 3 drums on his long boat or a ship, whatever. And he continued his voyages. And I'm sure you'll guess one day came. All right, Bhavan? Right, the sea was rough, right? And the ship was about to sink. And this man sitting over there, like his other people in the ship, they knew how to swim, so they pretty much, were jumping in the water. And they said, hey, listen, what do I do? They said, remember, you have those drums. Right? So he said, yes, I do have those drums. So he said, you take those drums. So he went back to the ship, and there were those 3 drums kept over there. And along with those 3 empty drums, there were also 3 more drums there. And they had gold coins, right? He had gone for trade, so he did a lot of collection, so he got those gold coins, right? And now he was wondering, I had to jump with a drum, right? That's what my friend told me, isn't it? Now instead of the empty drum, let me take the drum with the gold coins, right? And he took that drum and jumped with the gold coins. I'm sure you can guess what happened. Right? Our education system is also like this. You talk about IKS, right? There is no time, isn't it? We spend kindergarten 2 or 3 years, now 3 years, 12 years graduation, 3-4 years post-graduation, right? 15, 16 years of our lives, right? Learning only English, physics, chemistry, mathematics, etc., but have no solid time to learn the Tarka Shastra, to learn the Nyaya Shastra, learn the Yogadarshana, learn the Ashtadhyayee, right? We don't have the time. We are also guilty of it. So we are also like you, only running same schools, right? Having, say, okay, 40, 50,000 students, sounds like a big number. But we told ourselves that, okay, those 3 drums are there. Remember those 3 drums, which was told? So these 3 drums, right, so I'm sure we all are in the same boat, in the sense that we all run those proper, like CBSE. Most of you here run CBSE schools or state board schools. How many of you run CBSE schools here? Yeah. Majority, right? And state board schools, how many? Yeah. So pretty much all of us are from the schooling sector. And the previous Q&A, they mentioned that there's always pressure, right, to ensure that we live from one exam to the other. So my dear audience, Acharyas, there are those 3 drums, at least that you can keep along with you in your school. Okay? And that will possibly help the children as they go ahead in their lives. Obviously, deeper initiatives like the ones mentioned are definitely required, but you cannot make a mass change very, very quickly. We are a land of numbers. Remember, it's a positive for us and also a challenge for us. How many children wrote CBSE 10th exam this year? Take a guess. How many children wrote CBSE 10th exam this year? Just to give you a sense of numbers we deal with in this country. Almost 25 lakhs. 24 lakhs wrote just the class 10 CBSE exam. And then you have various state board schools. Right? My guess is at least 1 crore. Right? Every year. That's the kind of number of children. We have 140 crore population. So at least 1 crore is definitely there every year, at least, if not more. Right now the population, the rate is declining. So overall, in terms of this IKS in practice, I would say that those 3 drums that we tend to have are spirituality, adhyatmikta, rashtriyata, and seva. Adhyatmikta, rashtriyata, and seva. Now, when you think about, say, adhyatmikta or spirituality, which to my mind is the most important, right? Because I'll not get into because spirituality is the only aspect that can help you manage challenges or difficulties in life. And Shastra say, ko api kutra api na sukhina. No one is devoid of challenges or dukha. So spirituality is the most important. I will slightly once come back to this. Now, one big challenge that schools have, to my mind, is how do you think about spirituality? What is the kind of framework that we can put this into? Right? We saw multiple other institutions and we saw various things. For example, we saw meditation pictures. We saw, say, the Agnihotra, right? We saw Atithi. I think Prashant Devekar sir presented a nice framework which they followed, Jnana Prabodhini. So how do you put the spirituality together? So the way we look at it is to put this in a spiritual framework of Pancha Mahayagya. Or the Pancha means 5, right? 5 everyday duties of every individual. And within that context, we look at meditation, we look at the Agnihotra or the Deva Yagya. So this is the Brahma Yagya, Deva Yagya, and then you have the Pitra Yagya, which is about serving your living elders. Extremely important, right? And your Balivesh Deva Yagya, Atitha Yagya is about serving your guests, and Bhuta Yagya or Balivesh Yagya is about taking care of animals, right? Extremely important. So, in terms of framework, the way I would like to place before you, when you look at spirituality, is to look at a Pancha Maha Yagya. Also, obviously, like, I'm sure schools have a mealtime prayer, etc. All these are small little ways in which you can definitely having the sacred thread ceremony, right? Once again, a small little way in which you can influence spirituality. 2 quick things I like to cover over here. First of all, in schools, let's see as to there is a circle of concern in life and a circle of influence in life. They're 2 different things. Circle of concern and circle of influence. Right? We all are concerned that obviously the education system needs to change, lot needs to happen, 1 crore children that we need to handle, right? Our circle of concerns are wide. But it's also a circle of influence. Now you can't influence 1 crore children, isn't it? Sitting over here, as in everyday life's difficult. But you definitely have a circle of influence as a teacher. Because every day, remember, you're exposed to about 200 odd children, roughly, if you depending on the school strength, etc. But about 4 to 5, 3 or 4 classes, you definitely go to. Assuming about 40 kids in a class or an average, that's about 150, 200 kids that you are exposed to every single day, right? So, at least let's move out of good morning, good evening in schools. At least like a namaste, vanakkam, or the way you address over here in Karnataka, right? Let's at least have a local way in which we are able to wish. Small little things, right? The small wins that we can definitely take. Secondly, to the principals and school leaders sitting out here, please, let's put up a system of calling our teachers acharyas. It's a very rich word, isn't it? Rather than calling ma'am and, various other miss, ma'am, or, whatever it is, right? Let's call them as acharyas, isn't it? The word acharya is so deep, and it also puts in a pressure on us to rise to and be a acharya. Acharya is not merely a teacher, right? So, Varsharam Varshant, from Gnana Prabodhini. I like the shloka when I came over here. It says that, Ano Bhadraha Kritavo Vishwataha, right? Let good thoughts come to us from all directions, right? And from Gnana Prabodhini, DAV has had a rich collaboration and we have had the opportunity to learn a lot. So this Varsharam and Varshant, right? We picked up the ideas from there and it's been implemented now. Now let's come to patriotism. Extremely important. The previous speaker did mention in the previous session that we are losing our identity. Now, as teachers or as school leaders, what are a couple of things we can do to imbibe this amongst our kids? Couple of things we can do to imbibe this amongst our kids. Within your circle of influence. Circle of concern, yes, we all are concerned. Circle of influence. What can you do as a teacher or as an acharya tomorrow morning or tomorrow day after, right, to bring in some additional sense of patriotism amongst your kids? One or two ideas? Stories. What else? The day can start with shlokas. That will bring in a spiritual component for sure. Yes. Anything else, ma'am? Attendance.
Attendance is called instead of present, ma'am, they can say Jai.
Excellent, right? When you have an attendance, please give a round of applause, right? So, a simple thing, isn't it? Doesn't take much, right? We also learned this from some other school. And when we heard about it, we said, hey, listen, this is a great idea. There's no great challenge this, isn't it? Right? So you can just simply get your students to say, Jai Hind. Right? Instead of yes ma'am, yes miss, etc. Any other idea? One more idea. Incident about unsung heroes, for sure. Yes? Huh? Jai Hind, absolutely, sir. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind, similar aspects. One more aspect. See, in this country, it's sad, but we are so, we are not at all cognizant about made in India and made by Indian companies. Made in India and made by Indian companies, both, right? Not just only made in India, right? What do students do? They come and give you chocolates. Isn't on their birthdays? Right? And those chocolates are of which companies generally? Cadbury's, Nestle, right? Every time, do you have a circle of influence over there? Yes or no? Yes. You do have small circle of influence over there, right? Why can't every time you buy one Cadbury chocolate, that's a Kit Kat or whatever, just assuming some brand, that 10 rupee chocolate when you buy, my dear acharyas, please remember, a 50 paise is going out of this country. Right? It is not only Modi ji's responsibility to talk about it. Right? Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense sector, etc. Yes, we are proud of it. What can you and I do on a everyday basis? What is that circle of concern? What is that circle of influence? Right, that we have. So let's try and ensure that by a Indian product, made in India and by Indian companies. Get your children to buy some local chickies, right? Get your children to buy an Amul. If there's no great other brand that you can think of, right? At least it's an Indian company. All this is part of your Indian knowledge system, Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, right? So, these are the two. On the serving part, I'm sure multiple schools do that. So please, I'll skip this and I'll try and answer this one final question. However, this, in the previous session also, a couple of questions came up that how did it help you? So I'll give you two anecdotal evidences. Okay. So DAV has this very, very strong culture of imbibing this value system amongst children. We are very clear that education has two parts, Paravidya and Aparavidya. And the Shastras very beautifully define. Shastras interestingly define Avidya. They don't define Vidya. You know that? Shastras define what is avidya, lack of knowledge. The Yogadarshana says, anitya, ashuchi, dukha, anatmasu, nitya, shuchi, sukha, atma khyati, avidya. Right? So we believe that those 3 drums that I spoke about in earlier, right, we give to our children. And how has it helped us? So just like 2 days back, on Sunday, we have our weekly satsang, and after that, a parent came up to me. Right? Her daughter was just finished her class 12th now. She got about 93-94%, and she was seeking admission into VIT college. And when she had her final interview, right, the person on the other side, some senior person of VIT, he said, okay, I saw your marks, etc. Tell me, which school are you from? And she said, I am from DAV. She said, that's fine, the admission is granted. I know you'll be a cultural person. Right? There'll be some Vedic values. So it helps us immensely. This investment that we do on these 3 drums at least, right, is of great help. Also anecdotally, indeed I have Padma ma'am sitting over here who has been with DAV. She one day told me, remember what I told you one day? That if there's a DAV, in the marriage market, right, if there is that the child has a greater, or the groom or the bride, right, has better prospects, right, if you have studied from DAV, right? So I think that's the true validation, right, in terms of the true culture when we take to children, and this investment really pays off. Thank you so much for being patient audience. Thank you once again. Jai Hind.